Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where we talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Leverage Redemption, episode 12. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, we had the return of Hurley. I thought I saw him in the thumbnail, but the moment the opening credits was happening and we saw Drew Powell, I was like, yeah, it's him. That's freaking Hurley. I love it because I love that they go on this job and everyone's congratulating each other. It's like, wow, Parker, she cracked a safe underneath water. Elliot did this, and oh my god, Sophie grifted, she shifted characters. She played two different characters down the hallway, and it's like, oh, Mr. Wilson. Oh yeah, that 5 seconds, it's just like he didn't feel that valued in this moment, and so it ended up being an interesting thing where Sophie basically made him feel better about things because for her it just seems like it becomes so natural. But she talks about the fact is that humans are we already want to trust, but our brains are hardwired to be, because basically our brains are hardwired to be lied to, so for her it's like, yeah, I'm always in an advantage, all I have to do is come in and present myself to be. All I have to do is come in with a certain hat, and then people will fill in with their own circumstance bias of just kind of assuming they know what things are. So, but your boy Hurley shows up, and because I think it's so interesting because obviously Parker referenced Hurley in episode 10 along with Peggy, which we didn't hear anything about that, which I'm like, did you guys not get together? I didn't hear anything about it, so that's why I'm like, I want to know if you guys got together or not. I mean, it may have just been one date or not. They didn't say anything about it, so I was like, oh, I would like to know that. I mean, maybe they didn't, but maybe Peggy's happy. It makes me wonder, did Peggy ever get I'm blanking already, because I don't think Peggy ever found out what they really do. Hurley did. He's known for a while what they really do. Obviously he found out from the very beginning what they do, when they ended up inadvertently helping him with his circumstances the first time they met him. But yeah, it turns out he's part of Leverage International. He helps out with the team. So I'm like, oh my, yeah, Hurley moving up in the world. It's like, yeah, dude. I like it because Hurley's ever since he kind of put his life in a better place. Obviously, because I referenced it, the episode that he was in season 4. I believe with the episode with Peggy. Well, the two back-to-back episodes that are connected. But it's like, yeah, he's always wanted to do good, so I really appreciate that. He's happy to see everybody, and I love that he ended up stealing Harry's watch or something like that. And it's and then Parker took the wallet, and he's like, "Oh my god, oh there you go." He's learning from the best. I was like, I love it so much because he wants to him and Elliot to go out golfing, and it's just dude, it's just so good seeing another familiar face like that. It's so awesome. He references his dog. It's oh yeah, no. He's like, yeah, Roy named his dog after you. He's like, wait, what? And I was I'm trying to think, who is Roy? I was is Roy, and do correct me in the comments down below because I don't remember, but I'm Roy's not Clayne Crawford's character, right? The one that's like Elliot, that dude, I don't think that's his name, was it? That's what I'm trying to remember. But they're going to go golfing, and obviously Harry's oh, I've got a membership to a golf club, so it's supposed to be relaxing. I was initially wondering what episode this was going to be kind of mirroring a little bit. Was it going to mirror the last time we saw Hurley, like I said, the girls' night versus guys' night? So Hurley, Elliot, and Harry would be off doing something, and then I was oh, maybe the next episode will focus on Sophie and Parker. But no, this is closer to the episode in the final season where Parker was stuck at home because she broke her leg, but the rest of the team went to Japan. Tokyo specifically. It was somewhere in Asia. I can't remember. I want to say it was Tokyo, but I could be mistaken. And that basically the episode Parker's dealing with everything at home, but then you cut back to her getting advice from the team while they're out in the field. So it's closer to that episode than it is the other one. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But also, this revolves around a terrible person named Carl, who's played by James Marsters, which I'm dude, that's so dope. Obviously, Spike from Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel. In Smallville, he played Brainiac and eventually Brainiac 5. And then, probably more recently, would be Runaways, would probably be the thing. He played Victor. I think that's probably like the most recent thing I've seen him in. So I was just like, oh, dude, that's crazy. But sadly, he plays such a douchebag, and not like, Spike started off the bad guy, but eventually became like, nah, like you like Spike, but it's like, nah, like in this, he's like a complete and utter like forgivable douchebag, because basically he's trafficking humans. Basically, he's forcing people to work because he's keeping their passports and stuff, and obviously, there's a kid involved, Bao. He's like a teenager. Well, he's really good at golf, and Carl decides to take advantage of that. Basically, he ropes people into games, because it seems like he's almost like Hurley, where he's like constantly bets, and he owes like Frank, the guy he's like doing these exchanges with, like of human trafficking, like he owes him a lot of money. And so it seems like, yeah, he's betting people on the golf course. Like he plays terribly, and then he tricks you into like, oh, let's go again, and then he has Bao come and win, and Harry immediately figures out like, yeah, something's off. Obviously Elliot and Hurley immediately know what Connie's playing, but then Harry's like, yeah, but it doesn't seem like this kid is like into it, so they think something's more going on here, so they look into it more. Obviously they don't have all the tech and prep, so they're going at this like very low grade, which I love how Hurley is able to convince Elliot, because it was like, oh, he was referencing someone else. It's like Titanic something, and then Elliot's like, "Oh, you think you're going to get me involved in this by comparing me to the GOAT?" He's like, "No, of course not. So and so, like could beat PGA pros left-handed or right-handed. I mean, he even outplayed Al Capone in poker or whatever." He's like, "No, it's fine." And then Elliot's like, "All right, fine, I'll do it." So, Also, Hurley with this whole situation, man, right? He's not gambling, drugs, alcohol, and tacos. He's like, yeah, I had a taco problem. I was like, yeah, you did, Hurley. You really did. A combination of all that, but so slowly but surely, and I always like it. It's just kind of like a little interesting every time Elliot like has to flirt with someone to get some information, because he was trying to get, what was the home dude's name? Travis, the guy that Carl was playing against. It's like had to kind of remove him from the equation so that he could step in, and because the plan is to basically get Carl's money when they end up finding out what this is all about, like get him of all his money and eventually like steal all the passports and papers for all those people that are forced to work for him. So on one side of things, like Harry ends up going into the office having to like lockpick his way in. Once again, it's just that thing of like, okay, he's quickly got to adapt to everyone else's, like a bit, like he's got to do a little Parker, he's got to do a little Brianna, but Brianna's like on some camping thing with Hardison, which I wonder, is that going to be like a next episode thing, or is that just going to be like like Brianna comes back later on being like, yeah, this is what that was all about? And because I think there's another episode she was away for something like that, wasn't she? No, I think it was the episode I'm thinking of is the first half of the season where like it was Parker, Sophie, and Brianna. And you hear a little bit about what the guys were up to, but it wasn't like, oh, the next episode. It's like, no, they were just kind of away at the time, and by the time they came back, like the others had kind of dealt with everything. But that's what I'm curious if that was going to happen with Brianna, but maybe not, because she's away on some hacking thing that like Hardison dragged her away to. It's like some hacking camp or something like that, but I guess making sure she's in top shape to help the team and do what she needs to, because that squad needs a hacker, so he wants to make sure she's good, maybe, or like at least up to date with stuff. I don't know. But so it's like, yeah, Harry's got to cover that part. But like I said, also like Sophie and Parker's part. He was able to, it took him a while, but he was able to pick the lock, and he's trying to guess the guy's password, but he pulls a little bit of a Sophie, and like, yeah, like, was it a social hack? That basically, the lawyer, because he's someone that Harry knows, Rick, is like, yeah, he's at home on paternity leave with a baby, and it's like, yeah, you need a password, someone hacked you. Didn't you read the memo? It's like, memo? It's like, yeah, read the damn memos about like, using all these different common, like, like uppercase letters, numbers, and Greek symbols in your password. And I love his password, like, I am a loser. And I'm like, oh, poor guy. I mean, to be fair, you're at home. I mean, you're a terrible person, but like you're at home, you're like sleep deprived and everything because of the new baby and stuff like that. So yeah, even bad guys have to deal with that, right? But also he ends up meeting Sarah, a new associate. I figured as much when Harry slipped up and was like, oh, you remind me of my daughter. I was like, he has a newborn? I was like, there's no way, like, Yeah, but it also turned. I figured that was the reason why she figured it out, but it was mainly because he has 3 sons and no daughter. So but I knew she was like, when she was like, "Hey, send me a picture, like, show me what like Rick looks like." Everyone, from like that last party or whatever. But yeah, because it was interesting because Harry like walked in there and he was like, "Oh, like I know this case, this, and this." Like he started pointing out all the terrible things, which even she was like, "Oh, there had to be some good," which he was like, "Nope." Because basically Harry is very jaded when it comes to lawyers. As one himself, he's like, he just assumes like, no, like all lawyers are bad just because it's like, that's why the rich and powerful hire us. But like Sarah gave her perspective on like, no, not all lawyers are bad. Like when the rich and powerful like use their power to like some guy lied about her dog attacking him and ended up, her dog was going to get put down, but it took a good lawyer to decide to save her dog. So it's like, yeah, like not everyone is terrible. But like I said, Harry just got so jaded because of who he is and also his personal experience knowing so many like bad lawyers. So, well, bad lawyers who are good at being bad, essentially, is what I'm trying to say, So, but Harry ends up getting her help when he wants to get in and find out what Carl was mixed up in. And obviously, I love that Sarah's threatened to pepper spray him, even call the cops, and he's like, no, don't. And he's like, fine, I'll explain it. Like, the fact of the matter is Carl's doing some shady business, and it's like, she's like, what kind of lawyer are you? And he was like, essentially being honest about like who he was, and like he was like, yeah, I was really good at like helping bad people, so he's trying to do the right thing this time. And it's able to because he can see it inside of Sarah how much of a good person she is, because he even said like, don't let this place strip that of you, because he's like, yeah, like that's what this type of job does. Like it makes you do terrible things over and over again till you it chips away at who you are until you ultimately end up forgetting why you became a lawyer in the first place. And he's like, don't let that happen. And she's like, how? He's like, by helping me help these people right now. That's how. Like, you just continue being the good person that you are, and like this is one of those instances of doing that. So they end up figuring out, like I said, it's a human trafficking situation. So at the same time, Sophie lends her aid by helping Harry figure out, like, it's like, right, come up with a plan, and even that falls through, then you kind of like, you freestyle a little bit, kind of go on off the cuff of you're trying to figure out what to go, you come with something on the spot. But essentially, like, back on the, like, course, Hurley is like gathering money up around, once again, because there are plenty of jobs that they pulled in the original series where it's like, right, we're kind of limited on supplies and stuff like that, so we gotta like kind of fly by the seat of our pants, like figuring things out. So Hurley's gathering up the money for Elliot to play. Initially, he was able to kind of bring Carl. And by convincing him by playing like darts, and ends up easily beating him, and then they eventually go to like the golf course. And I think it's so interesting, like, first and foremost, like Elliot's kind of suffering a little bit at the game, and I love that Hurley brings up the fact that it's like, well, you learned hockey in like a week. I'm like, oh, I remember that. You also learned minor baseball. And he was like, yeah, and they named a sandwich after. He's like, I'm not about to get into it. I'm like, I know that's still a sore subject for you. It's because you're a big time here. I mean, Elliott's done a lot. He was a country singer for a little bit, a baseball player, a hockey player. It's like, oh, he was even a MMA fighter for a little bit too. So it's like, yeah. But some of those kind of gives you an idea more, because later on, like, Hurley realizes, like, for him, it's like, oh, he enjoys the game because it's peaceful, but that doesn't work with who Elliot is. And so he's like, okay, I'm going, like, what are the kitchen, the battlefield, like, what does it all have in common? It's like chaos. That's where he thrives. So Hurley's whole shtick was about pissing Elliot off. It's like, oh, that recipe of yours, it sucks. Oh, here, I just posted this picture of you looking dumb about that recipe, and it's just like, Hurley, and that's the point to like rile him up, because they were suffering, because the whole plan continges on him kind of putting Carl in a position where Carl has to switch over so that Bow, so they can win the bet, be in a position where they bet all their money so that they can get him to go up against Bow, and that will kind of set the stage and have Hurley versus Bow, and Caddy versus Caddy type of thing. Because anytime Hurley tried to reach out to Bao, got to know him a little bit, understanding how his circumstances ended up the way they were, because he used to fish the golf clubs out of rivers, because it's just like, yeah. And he learned the game, and his mom saw his skill and thought when he came to America, like maybe he'd have a better life because he could get like a scholarship or something. But sadly, they ran into Carl, and Carl made a lot of promises about the American life and American dream that they live. And he ended up taking his mom's passport along with other people. And it's like, yeah, they're forced to work for him. And now, And initially, Bao doesn't want to help because he's scared of, like, right, if something goes wrong, his mom will suffer the consequences, because it's like Carl will send her back, I think it was to Vietnam, and he'll never see her again. So that's his main reason for not wanting to ultimately get involved. And so obviously you have Elliot putting Carl in a very compromising position. And when it comes down to Hurley versus Bao, Hurley's kind of flipping out a little bit because Elliot's at the trigger word. He referenced gambling. So at the same time, like, Harry made it inside and he's trying to like crack the safe. So he's getting like Parker's opinion on it, but she's like, then you just like drill. You always bring a drill if if you're going to break into a safe. He's like, I didn't know I was going to be breaking into a safe today. She's like, well, then like find some alternative. And he tried to make a makeshift bomb. Sadly, that didn't work out. So, but luckily everything kind of works out in the end. But at the same time, Sarah does her. I think the stereotype she's playing into is a Karen, where she's like, "Oh, my watch was stolen. Where's the supervisor? I think that guy stole my watch, and I've got everyone. And so no one leave here. I got everyone on video, huh?" So it's like, yeah, doing her best Karen impression, So once again, I feel so bad for all the Karens out there in the world. Because not every Karen is a Karen, and it's sad that, like, yeah, if it wasn't the name Karen, it was going to be something else. It's going to be like, oh, all the Ashleys, which there's a song from Love Hate Hero. It's like, that's got to suck if you've ever heard the song. There's a song called Love Hate Hero it's called, what was it, Homewrecker? Or is it She's a Homewrecker? I don't remember. If you're named Ashley, you never want to listen to that song, because it's like, oh, just like hearing the context of that song and you named that, yeah. So then you have like you have the song Escape the Fate, which is named Ashley, and it's always a roll of the dice with that type of situation of like names and songs and stuff like that. It just made me think of that. Like, I went on a whole tangent. I do apologize, but I am curious, like, what the job was that they were working on, because at first, like, Sophie was a priest. And then, like, she's mourning over someone's grave, like, going super exaggerated. Obviously, like, you have Parker, like, wasn't it like her stealing like a gold cross or something? I mean, what is the context? Because we never got, like, with the episode I was referencing from the final season of the original show where Parker's leg was broke, we never really got the full context of what the job was that the team was pulling off without her. You got some ideas of it, but even then it was like, no, there was no clear, like, what was going on, and that was the point, to kind of keep it super ambiguous. So it's just, I guess it's like the same, it's in the same vein in this regard. But I'd actually skipped over it, but this episode actually had a very interesting moment between Harry and Sarah, where Sarah felt like, well, first, like, it was a conversation about getting justice. It's like, yeah, we can help these people, but it's like, right, like, even if you take down Carl, there's a good chance Rick could get him off. And even then, it's like, yeah, but, like, we can help these people, but what about the other people? Like, this is only a small link in the chain. And it's like, it doesn't even feel like true justice. But for Harry, it's like, sometimes this is all you get. And then, Sarah's like, right, then at the very least, I wish I could do more, but at the very least, I'll do what I can to help these people. And so Harry ended up later on, he uses the advice that Sophia gave him early, like at the beginning of the episode, to help her about, like, right, all you have to do is go in there and obviously, like, pretend like, let their bias kind of fit the role that you're supposed to be playing. Hits while she was able to kind of go in there and do her quote unquote Karen thing. But nevertheless, Hurley and Elliot. It comes down to like the final hole, and Hurley was able to sink it because Elliot was like, right, aside from like everything else, there's like one thing that you focus on. He was like getting the smile off that smoke bastard's face. He's just like, that's right. It's like coast to coast around the world, right? I'm like, I thought that was pretty dope. And so they were able to win. Carl gets tapped for all his cash. But by the time he rolls up there, like Rick shows up as well, and so does Frank, and it's like cool. So they were able to gather everyone, and now the FBI got called because they didn't want to take the chance some locals would pop up. So Sarah points out the fact is it turns into a full-blown conspiracy charge, because if Carl went down, yeah, Rick could have gotten him, but now it's like it's not only Carl, it's his corrupt lawyer and also his business partner Frank. So now all of them going to get taken down, and all that stuff in the safe is going to be collected by the cops. So Rick got pepper sprayed in the face. Frank tried to run, but Elliot took down the guy out front. You know, it's like, you know, I think Hurley was like, oh, a par 5, and Elliot's like, nah, par 3. 1, 2, 3, took that guy down, and then like swung the golf, kind of put his baseball skills to use / golf skills in that moment when he knocked the ball towards the dude's balls, and it's like, oh, he screamed out 4, and Hurley's like, I probably should have said 2, and I'm like, freaking golf jokes. Well, in that it's more so a ball joke, 2 balls and stuff, like, regardless. So that kind of worked out in the end, and luckily the whole thing was taken down. Because they are most likely she's going to testify. She is going to be considered a witness, and so even with an undocumented situation, she's going to be able to stay. And it's like, what about the others? And it's like, at the very least, they're going to need a good lawyer. So Sarah, you know, goes to represent them, you know. So at the end of the day, Harry's happy about that, because like he was able to help point a lawyer in the right direction, make sure she didn't end up like him or anyone else around them, so she didn't end up like Rick or something like that. Like I said, you just feel bad because like, right, you're dealing with the whole baby thing, but now you're back, and it's like, oh, but yeah, it's like, yeah, you were a douchebag. It's like, it's actually kind of even sadder when you think about it, because it's like, oh, he's going to jail. He's got 3 sons. He's got like a recent baby he just had a baby. So it's kind of like, oh, but it's, I don't know. It's actually really sad when you actually think about it like that. It's like, oh yeah, I mean, criminals have lives and families too, you know, so kind of let that slip my mind from time to time, but regardless. But they were able to help Bow out. They ended up setting him up with like a coach, what was it, LSU, and he could potentially get a scholarship and everything, and it was like, go do your thing like what you originally came here to do. So things kind of worked out, and I love Elliot being like, man, I told you guys from the beginning that we should have taken this job, and you guys should listen to me more, something like this. Like, I'm pretty sure it didn't work out like that, but when they get back, everyone's celebrating Harry this time around for what he was able to accomplish, you know. So because Harry was feeling a little down on himself, because he felt like, oh, what am I really contributing to the team? What part do I play? And this was kind of, his success story. So I thought that was pretty dope. But just a fun episode all around. To be fair, that just fits the show entirely. But it's another fun episode, I really should say. Like I said, I'm just so glad to see Hurley. That's awesome. But I'm really interested to ultimately see where everything ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.